his absentees, but every player you see in this video will not be playing at the Euros. And I'm going to build an 1 to 11, with subs of the best players who are not at the Euros. Now, a couple things. Firstly, to make it interesting, maximum of 2 from each country, just because I could just choose all French players, right? Or something like that. So I have to be strategic with who I'm choosing in what position. And also, I should note that I'm filming this, it's most likely going to come out before the actual squads are released. So the provisional squads have been released by every country, but those have not been cut down yet. So there will be more players who get cut from those squads and miss out, but teams cut them down fairly late on, so I didn't want to wait that long to release this. I was like, okay, let me just get this done now. But maybe if you're watching in the future, you can let me know, now that you know who's been cut from what squad, if there are some big names who have been cut, who you can add and tinker into this team. But for now, these are players who didn't even make the provisional squad. So if I've missed anybody, in the comments below, and your teams, of course. But we will begin in goal. So in goal is, there was a couple good goalies, but there was one obvious one, really obvious, and that is, of course, Thibaut Courtois, who is not going to the Euros. He has not been included in the Belgium squad. The Champions League winner played in the Champions League final, kept a clean sheet, and he's not at the Euros. That is pretty crazy, but of course Belgium did qualify for the Euros, but Courtois has been left out for a couple reasons. Firstly, of course he's been injured for most of this season, so there are concerns, I guess, over, even though he did well in the Champions League final, he's barely played this season. So there are concerns there in terms of his fitness, and other players, other goalies such as Matt Sells, have played instead and done okay for the national team as well in his absence. So Tedesco's probably thinking about that. But I think that injury has also helped him massively in terms of Dominic Tedesco to have a reason to leave out Courtois, because I believe, I'm not too well versed on what exactly has happened, but maybe one of you can let me know. There's been some sort of disagreement between both, because even when Courtois was fit, I believe Tedesco left him out, and there was some sort of words exchange. Something happened between those two, and that's why Dominic Tedesco, the Belgian manager, has left out Courtois along with his injury issues, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, Courtois is one of the best keepers in the world, but he will not be at the Euros, and we'll see how. I think it might be Matt Sells who's the number one. We'll see how he does, or Kaminsky. It might be one of those two at the Euros, and we'll see if that was the right call for Belgium. But he's in the team. Right back. Now, this one was kind of hard, but it was between two, but I'm going for Ben White. Ben White at right back. I kind of had to get an England guy. It was him or Reece James. You can take your pick, either one, but I'll go Ben White simply because, he's actually played this season. But this was one of those where, different to Courtois, where he's maybe had injury issues, fell out with the manager. He has kind of fell out with the manager, but Ben White's been fit the entire season. He's had another pretty good season as well for Arsenal. In fact, better than pretty good. He's been really, really good. Part of one of the best defences in the league, in the world, in Arsenal. Fantastic at right back. Complete centre back as well. And if you watch my Euro squad, I actually put him in there because I think he's just so used to playing right back, centre back, got that link up with Saka as well. But I knew it was not going to get there for multiple reasons. Firstly, if you guys your mind back to the last World Cup, he was in the squad, but then he left early for apparently some sort of personal reason. Now that was never disclosed what happened, but it wasn't a good look in terms of his England future, because obviously the England right back position is very competitive. But then reports reports came out that recently Steve Holland, the England assistant, essentially kind of hung out White to dry in a team meeting. Like he sort of just laid into him and was saying how like, oh, he doesn't watch football because Ben White mentioned, I believe, in an interview one time, but like he doesn't really like football. He doesn't watch it outside of his time, in his spare time. And you know, he sort of laid into him, and Ben White had that falling out with the coaching staff, and it's believed that's the reason. Ever since then, he's not really been involved in the last few England squads, and yeah, Southgate as well has really been quite quiet. You can see something's definitely happened there behind the scenes with Ben White and the coaching staff, and yeah, that's the reason he's not at the Euros. I mean, we have a lot of right backs anyway, but yeah, something's happened there, and we'll see maybe if we get a new manager if White can return, but I don't think right now Southgate's in charge. White has much of an England future, if I'm being honest, but ability-wise, he's more than capable of playing. Okay, centre-backs. First centre-back is Mats Hummels. So, Mats Hummels for Germany is not at the Euros. Similar to Courtois, pretty funny, we've got two people who featured in the Champions League final, and they are not at the Euros. Despite their nations qualifying, they've not been called up. Hummels, as for Germany, just simply not been called up. He's been fit. I believe there's not really been anything about behind the scenes of falling out with Nagelsmann or anything. I think what it is, Nagelsmann has left out quite a few of those senior players at Germany. He wants to, Germany have struggled at the last few tournaments with this sort of old guard, if you like, with the likes of Hummels and stuff. Since then, really, Nagelsmann has got rid of a lot of that old guard. He has kept some of it, like Neuer, Cruz, etc., but he's not really trusted some of those older guys. He's trying to blend through that new generation of German players, and Mats Hummels is one of those who has been in the German national team for a long time. He was there in the 2014 World Cup, and yeah, even though he is performing so well, he has had such a fantastic season for Dortmund, particularly in the Champions League. Been one of the best defenders in the Champions League this season. A big leader. Nagelsmann has decided not to call him up, which is a big call. It's a really big call. We'll see if Germany fail, if Germany have problems at the back. We'll see what happens. And Nagelsmann will have egg on his face, but to be fair, they have some good centre backs. Obviously, Hummels is centre back partner. Nico Schlotterbeck's there, Rudiger's there, so it would be competitive anyway, but a little bit of a surprise that Hummels is not picked. I think that's probably the end of his German national team career, to be honest. Okay, next up we have an Austrian, and we have David Alaba. So David Alaba is in a completely different situation from these three, where maybe they've fallen out with managers, not been selected. David Alaba would be the first name on the Austrian team sheet. He is the star player for Austria. He is by far and away their best player. So there's no concerns there. But unfortunately, he suffered an ACL injury, I believe, in about December or something like that for Real Madrid, and he is not going to be recovered in time for the Euros. Now, that's absolutely devastating for Austria and for Alaba. Austria, as I said, are losing their star player, their best player, a player who can play multiple positions for them. He's played centre-back, he's played left-back, he's played in midfield for Austrian national team. And also, Austrian national team are in a good spot right now. They're playing really well, so now they're without their key player. That's a big dent for their hopes at the Euros. But also, for David Alaba, it's really unfortunate because, he's the captain, I believe, of the Austrian national team. As I said, Austria are on some really good form under Ralf Rangnick. This could potentially be something special at this tournament for them, and Alaba is not going to be there. He's going to miss out. And he's about 30 years old now. Austria went over the last World Cup. They haven't been at the World Cup for a while. If they don't qualify for that World Cup, Okay, so it's actually a very competitive position. But we have Lucas Hernandez. Lucas Hernandez for PSG and France. So, the Hernandez brothers, Lucas and Theo Hernandez, were set to feature together at the World Cup. Now, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if the Hernandez brothers have actually featured at a major tournament together. At the last World Cup, I think Lucas Hernandez was also injured there, and then that meant Theo Hernandez was played in his position. And it's weird. It seems like one of them always has to miss out, and this time it's Lucas Hernandez again. As I said, I believe he's missed the 2022 World Cup as well through injury, so if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong there, but to miss 2 tournaments in a row, that's a real sting, and he's not going to be at the Euros. This is not because of selection. He is actually one of Deschamps' favourites. Deschamps really rates Lucas Hernandez. Absolutely loves him, always plays him when he's fit. But it's just that injury. He picked up an injury fairly recently as well, which is really devastating. It was a serious one. I'm not quite sure what it was, but Baz ruled him out for the Euros, unfortunately. And yeah, really disappointing for him and for France. As I said, Deschamps really rates Lucas Hernandez a lot. He plays him quite a bit. He probably would have started either at left back or centre back for France, so probably a bit of reshuffling there for Deschamps, although I'm sure they have enough talent to compensate for that. But yeah, disappointing, and also, you know, for his future of the national team career, because there is so many options. Him being out means that there's room and a space for somebody else who could potentially have a fantastic Euros, and that might mean that Lucas Hernandez's spot in the national team is gone, but I suspect he will be back. But unfortunately, it's just a bad injury that has ruled him out, similar to Alaba. Okay, in the midfield we have our second German player in Leon Goretzka for Bayern Munich and Germany. So, extremely similar to Mats Hummels, really. Nagelsmann has gone for that fresh blood approach, and someone who has missed out, probably rather harshly, is Leon Goretzka. Now, Leon Goretzka has not had an amazing year at Bayern. I don't think many people at Bayern have, besides Harry Kane. Bayern have had a really poor season, but Goretzka's always been a mainstay in the national team since he's really broke onto the scene. And, you know, he's proven himself at the big moments for Bayern Munich. To be fair, he actually had a decent end of the season. He was pretty good in the Champions League, I remember. And it was quite a shock, to be honest, because unlike Hummels, it's not like Goretzka's old. Like Goretzka, I'm not entirely sure what his age is. I'll have a look, but he's definitely in his 20s. So it's not like Hummels where, okay, he's done that for the national team. So he's old now. Let's move on to the fresh young guy. Okay, yeah, Goretzka's 29, so it's not like he's like 33 or anything. He still has a lot to give, but to be fair, I think he's probably the loser of Toni Kroos coming back. I mean, if Toni Kroos didn't come back, I'm not sure if he would have gone anyway, but Toni Kroos coming back to the national side means that someone else to drop out, and Goretzka was the one. And yeah, that doesn't look good for his national team career at 29. Maybe if Nagelsmann's not in charge for the next World Cup, Goretzka might come back, but it looks like he might be done for the German national side, which is a bit disappointing for a player of his quality. Okay, next up we have Gavi for Spain and Barcelona. So, Barcelona and Spain, the Spain side actually features quite a lot of Barcelona players, quite a lot of Barcelona youngsters, because Barcelona have really recently had a fantastic spell through their youngsters. You got the likes of Pau Capazzi, Pedri, Fermin Lopez, Lamine Yamal have all been named in the Spain squad. And one of the guys who definitely would have been in there, one of the starters actually for the Spanish national side, really establishing himself as a starter and a key player, and then got that injury. That's derailed him, and at such a young age. I mean, it's not like Goretzka or these other guys really, where he's not going to have a future. Of course, Gavi will be at other tournaments, but his first tournament he's going to have to wait, and also we'll see how he recovers from this at such a young age, if he can cope with this. But yeah, it's been a real blow for him personally not to make it. Spain do have other players in that position, but it's a blow for Spain as well, because he would have been a starter for them in the midfield. Okay, next up we have Martin Odegaard. Now this is the first player on here who is not at the Euros because they didn't qualify for the Euros. All the other guys, their nations qualified for the Euros, but for various reasons they did not get into the squad. Whereas Martin Odegaard, if his nation qualified, he would be one of the first names on the team sheet in that squad. However, his nation, Norway, did not qualify, rather disappointingly, because Norway actually have a pretty decent squad. Of course, they're no like European juggernaut or anything, but you know, they have an okay squad. So I think a lot of people were expecting them to at least qualify for these Euros, but they were unable to, and it was a really, really poor display. They didn't even make the playoffs of qualification. So they're not at the Euros. He's gonna have to wait. He's never played, I believe, in a major tournament. I don't remember last time Norway were at a major tournament. So I mean, it's really disappointing for Odegaard on a personal note, because he had such a good year for Arsenal, and he's really coming into, I guess, the peak of his powers right now. Of course, he's still fairly young. He's still got a few more tournaments to hopefully qualify for something, but you know, time is ticking, and it'll be very, very sad if a player of Martin Odegaard's quality does not ever manage to grace the pitch of international major tournament. That would be very sad on a personal note for him, because player of his ability should be playing on an international stage like that. But we'll see how Norway do. Maybe they can make it to the World Cup in 2026 with the expansion to more teams, but I do suspect he will make it. I mean, hopefully for him, they will make a Euros at least in the coming years, but he's going to have to wait longer for that. Okay, into the front three. Right wing. Domenico Berardi is the right winger. Now Berardi is back to the others, where his nation, Italy, did qualify for the Euros, but he has not been selected. The reason he's not been selected is because he has been injured. Unfortunately, he picked up a bad injury, and he is going to miss the Euros through that injury, which is a big blow for Italy. Of course, Italy are the holders of the Euros. And if you remember that Euro 2020, Berardi was a key player for Italy. He played a lot of the games for Italy, he featured in most of them. He came off the bench in the final and did really well. I believe he scored his penalty in the shootout as well. And of course got a winner's medal, playing well for the national side. And yeah, he's stuck at Sassuolo for a long time. Been a one club guy really, and has been a fantastic player, and would have got into the squad. I'm not sure if he would have guaranteed started, but he would have been a player that Spalletti uses for sure. But he is missing through injury, and yeah, it's not been a good year for him personally. Injured, not making it to the Euros, and then on a personal note, Sassuolo, his club, were relegated to Serie B, so yeah, not good for him at all right now. Things are not going well for him, and we'll see how Italy do without Berardi. One of their key men from the last Euros is out. Okay, so in the final two spots then, so at the left wing position we have Marcus Rashford, let me get that one. Marcus Rashford for England. So Rashford was probably the biggest shock Rashford. He's called him up before when Rashford's not at the best of times in the club game. Rashford's a very purple patch, up and down player in the club game. Sometimes he has incredible seasons, sometimes he has some awful seasons. But Southgate has always stuck by him, and you saw actually at the last World Cup, Rashford did really, really well in a super sub capacity, and I thought that's something that Southgate was going to use again. However, Southgate and England have decided to go down the route of merit, and if you're going off merit, that's fair because Rashford has quite frankly had an awful season for Man United, a really, really bad year. He's had some issues off the pitch as well, and I think Southgate's gone, okay look, even though you've done well for me in the past, there are players like Gordon who have had fantastic years and are on form, and I cannot justify having you in my squad. And that's why Rashford has been left out, which is a big blow for him, but he's in this team because we all know his ability is superb. When he's on it, he can be one of the best players in the Prem. He is superb when he is on it. It's just when he's on it, and unfortunately, he's not been on it, and maybe harsh, but rightfully so, he has not been selected because of his poor form in the club game. Okay, and our striker is of course Erling Haaland. Same nation as Martin Odegaard, our second Norwegian player, and these two are of course the stars of the Norway national side, but they will not be at the Euros because of course, as I mentioned, Norway are not at the Euros. And with these two, a lot of people backed them to qualify. I thought they would with these two, and they have a decent squad overall, but for whatever reason it's just not worked out. I mean, you can't really fault these two because Haaland has been scoring goals, Odegaard has been doing well, but it's just not worked. Haaland is of course still young, I think it's a bit younger than Odegaard, so same thing, still has plenty of time to qualify for a major tournament with the national side, but you know, it's really disappointing. I think he doesn't want to be in a situation with some other great strikers, you know. I think he is in a situation where, like, with Ibrahimovic, Lewandowski, throughout these nations where they don't always qualify for major tournaments, they're not expected to do much, so if you do anything with them, that's just a bonus to your thing. Nobody's judging you and your legacy on what you do for your national side. Like they've done with Ibra and Lewandowski, no one judges them based on that. But you get bonus points if you do something like Ibra did, for example. So same thing with Haaland, really. If he doesn't manage to get to a major tournament with Norway, no one's going to be like, oh, that's a disgrace. Haaland, for that reason, is not one of the best strikers in the world. No. But if he does manage to get them to a major tournament, and he does well, then, you know, that's a bonus point. But I do believe with these two, you know, they're going to get better. I believe they will get to a major tournament soon. But, you know, they can't waste it with two fantastic players like this in the same generation. They cannot waste their opportunity now, Norway, to qualify for a tournament. Alright, let's move on to the bench then. So our backup keeper is Lucas Hideki for Bayer Leverkusen and Finland. So the Bayer Leverkusen captain, who has had an incredible year, lifting the Bundesliga and the Deutschen Pokal, obviously unbeaten, will not be at the Euros with Finland. Finland are not at the Euros now. I mean, this isn't too much of a surprise, but Finland, I believe, made it to their first ever major tournament at the last Euros, which is a fantastic achievement. So Lucas Hideki's already featured at a major tournament for his nation, which is incredible stuff. If he would have qualified for another Euros, that would have been great, but wasn't to be. Finland did not qualify. He is older, so I'm not sure if he will be at another major tournament and if Finland will go back to the big stage. But as I said, he managed to play for a major tournament with his nation before at the last Euros, so he's already really achieved all he could and done what he could at the international stage. Just a bit disappointing for him, but I guess, you know, he's done. He's qualified for the Euros. Euros with his national side, and then this year he finally completed his club side by winning a trophy with Leverkusen. So I guess he can't complain too much as Finland, you know, they're not the biggest of the nations and are not necessarily in like some golden generation right now. Okay, next up we have we have Stefan Savic for Montenegro. Montenegro have not qualified for the Euros. I don't think many people were expecting them to. I'm not sure the last time they were at a major tournament, or if they've ever been at a major tournament, to be honest. But yes, Stefan Savic has been one of their better players in the last few years. Been a real rock at the back for Atletico Madrid at centre back, and he'll not be at a major tournament. I'm not sure if he's ever competed at a major tournament for his nation, and he probably won't, which is a bit disappointing for a player of his quality because he is a good centre back, and disappointing if he can't represent his nation at the major tournaments once in his career. But it is what it is. Similar to Finland, they're not really expected to qualify for a tournament. So yeah, it's just a bit disappointing for Savage, but what can you do? Okay, next up we have Sven Botman. Sven Botman for Netherlands. Now Netherlands, of course, are the flip side of these two. They definitely qualify for tournaments. Oh well, you would suspect. Because they weren't at the last couple World Cups, but yeah, Botman for the Netherlands has not been selected due to injury. He probably would have been selected if he was fit, although they do have quite a lot of good centre-backs, so it wouldn't be a guarantee. But Botman picked up an ACL injury, unfortunately, for Newcastle, as many Newcastle players have done, got injured this season, and he will be missing the Euros for that reason. But as I said, it's not going to be a huge miss because they have so many good centre-backs for like Van Dijk, De Ligt, Ake, Van der Ven, yeah, they're gone. Just a disappointing one for Botman on a personal note. Okay, next player we have is Pedro Porro for Spain. Pedro Porro has not been selected at right back for the Spanish national side. A little bit of a surprise because he has had a really good year, I thought, with Tottenham. He's done pretty well under Ange Postecoglou this season as an inverted fullback and also overlap, really good going forward, solid defensively as well. And I thought, for that reason, he would get a call up, but they've not chosen him. Of course, they've got the experienced Danny Carvajal there, and I believe the experience as well, and Jesus Navas has been called up, so he's opted for experience instead of Porro, which is a bit disappointing for Porro on a personal note, but to be fair, this will probably be Carvajal's last major tournament, definitely be Navas's as well, so Porro should be the future at that right back position, but for now he won't be at these Euros for Spain. Next up, we have a left back, and we have our first Portuguese player, Rafael Guerreiro for Bayern Munich, has not been selected for the Portuguese national side. Now Portugal have so many good players, so many good players, so I believe it's just been, I don't think he's been injured, it's just been a selection thing. He's not been chosen because they have such a stacked lineup and roster that they don't need him. They didn't feel it's necessary. They have players like Cancelo, Nuno Mendes, etc. at left back who they've decided to pick instead of Guerreiro, which is disappointing for Guerreiro. I believe he was a Euro 20. Yeah, he was a Euro 2016 winner with them, so he's got a lot of experience on the national front for Portugal, but he has not been selected here. And similar to some others that maybe at his age could potentially be the end of his national team career. If he has a good spell behind the next couple of years, he might make the next World Cup, but I don't know, I doubt it. I think his national team career could be over, but as I said, he did win the Euros at 2016, was a vital player in that team, so he has had a good national team career, but it seems like it is coming towards for different reasons to Berardi. Berardi's missing out through injury. Locatelli is simply missing out because of performance. Locatelli has not been amazing for Juventus really since he's joined. Actually, since the Euros, to be honest. That Euros campaign was kind of a little bit of a breakout. He was actually at Sassuolo. He was teammates with Berardi at that point, and he was used in a sort of super sub role, and he actually grabbed a lot of goals for Italy at that Euros. He was one of the better players for Italy at that Euros, and then off that Euros he bought a move to Juventus, but since joining Juventus he's not really been able to discover that form which he had at Juventus, and while he's been okay, he's not been amazing, and unfortunately he has missed out at the national team because they do have quite a few great midfielders, and Spalletti has not chosen him, so he's still got some time in his career to recover and rediscover that form and become part of the national team side, but he does need to, kind of similar to Goretzka, step it up a bit if he wants to be part of the national team once again at a major tournament. Alright, so the next player is another Serie A midfielder. It is Lewis Ferguson. Lewis Ferguson for Scotland, our first Scottish player in this side. Lewis Ferguson has had a sensational season for Bologna, been one of their best players this season in midfield for Thiago Motta's side, who have managed to qualify for the Champions League this season, and Ferguson has been one of the key drivers towards that Champions League qualification. And based on that season, many people were thinking, I was particularly thinking that Ferguson was going to have a sort of breakout campaign for Scotland. It would be one of the ones to watch really at the tournament, and maybe potentially earn himself a big move in the summer off the back of that. But unfortunately, he picked up a major injury, and that has ruled him out of the squad for Scotland, which is a big miss, because he would have been a real weapon for Scotland if he could have emulated that form he has shown for Bologna at the national side level. Now, to be fair, Scotland do have quite a few midfielders like McTominay, McGinn, Ryan Christie, so they can replace him, but he would have been a really nice addition to have for Scotland at these Euros. But I think, he's still fairly young. He will have another crack at a major tournament, hopefully. Next player in the squad. The next player in the squad is another Frenchman, our second Frenchman. It is Christopher Nkunku. Christopher Nkunku has not been selected by Deschamps, kind of surprisingly. Now, Nkunku, similar to Hernandez, has been a bit of a Deschamps favourite. Deschamps tends to like Nkunku. He picks it fairly often when he can. However, Nkunku, he missed the last World Cup like Hernandez through injury, which is a big miss. And then he missed this one as well, kind of through injury. I mean, he is fit and he is available to be selected, but unfortunately, he has been injured for most of the season. Not had too many games, so for that reason, Deschamps said, look, I'm not going to take the gamble on him. I can't rely on him to actually stay fit for the tournament. He might pull up during the tournament, so he has not picked him. But yeah, it's disappointing for Nkunku. He's going to have to hope the next 2 years he can be injury free, because I think if he is, he's definitely end up playing for the World Cup in 2026. But if he's not, and he keeps getting these injuries, then he probably won't feature for France at the major tournament, which is a big blow for him. Okay, our next player in the squad. Our next player in the squad is our second Portuguese player. It is Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, very similar to Nkunku for Portugal. Neto has been one of their favourites for the Portuguese national side. When he's played for the national side, he's been really good, really fun, explosive, direct, and looked really sharp. But he has really suffered in the last 2 years with major injuries. He missed the last World Cup for a major injury, and he's missing these Euros with another injury. have so many good players, and they're not going to take a gamble on him. Similar to Nkunku, if he can stay fit for the next 2 seasons and prove his fitness, he'll be on that plane for the World Cup in 2026. But if he cannot, then his future for the Portuguese national side could be looking rough, to be honest. Although he's a bit younger, so he does have a bit more time to prove himself. Next up, we have Alexander Isak. So, Isak is like Haaland and Odegaard. For Sweden, they have unfortunately not qualified for the Euros. He is fully fit and would have been one of the star players at the tournament, but Sweden, kind of surprisingly, have not qualified for the tournament. Sweden going through a bit of a rough patch, it seems, in the national side right now, because they've been, in the last decade or so, a bit of regulars at these Euros, etc., major tournaments. But recently, they haven't been at a World Cup. I don't think they were at the last World Cup in 2022, not at these Euros now, so tough spell for the Swedish national side. But Isak, on a personal thing, wait, I just realised I put this Heen guy, not Isak, that was not, there we go. Okay, there's Isak. But yeah, personally for Isak, he has still been superb. This season he's been incredible for Newcastle. He has so much ability. One of the star players, the star player for the Swedish national side. And it's disappointing he won't be at the Euros. I believe he was at the last Euros with Sweden, so he has played for Sweden at a major tournament, but this could have been a big one for him because he is now a lot better player than he was then. But he has plenty of time. I'm sure Sweden will qualify for another major tournament soon, and Isak will be a big part of that. Our next Dutch player is where okay, he's not coming up. Okay, there we go. Joshua Zirkzee, another Bologna player, another star for Bologna, and Thiago Motta. Joshua Zirkzee has been the guy up top, banging in the goals for Motta's side, and unfortunately will not be at the Euros for the Netherlands. He, just like Lewis Ferguson, picked up an injury towards the back end of the season, and that has ruled him out for the Euros, which is a big blow because for the Netherlands, they've got a few options up there up top, but Zirkzee was the up and coming guy, the guy who was on form the most, who could have had a really special tournament up top for them, but he will not be there, and they might struggle for goals without him. And also on a personal note, because this has been a real breakthrough season for Zirkzee at Bologna. A lot of clubs were talking about him and looking at him, and if he had gone to the Euros, it could have been an opportunity to put himself in the shop window, but that is not happening. He still may get a move, but he is unfortunately injured and not going to be at the Euros for the Netherlands. Although he is very young, and if he keeps up at this trajectory, he will be the starting striker for the Netherlands in a few years' time for sure. Okay, and I realise that my maths is wrong, and I didn't pick another player here, but I'll use this spot for honourable mentions. So, honourable mentions players who didn't get into this side because of the cap on the players and the nations. Julian Brandt, not in the German side. Another of those Champions League finalists who are not at the Euros. You also have Destiny, Udogie for Italy, not at the Euros because of injury, although he's had a fantastic year for Spurs. Both fullbacks for Spurs will not be at the Euros, which is a bit unfortunate. If you're a Spurs fan, you've also got another fullback in Malo Gusto not at the Euros, despite a pretty good year for Chelsea, although he's very young and I'm sure at some point will get a chance for the national side. Reece James, as I mentioned earlier, and you also got another Frenchman, Michael Elise, who has not been selected for France, but he's very young. He's interesting because he can play for multiple nations. He can still play for England, definitely qualifying for the Euros, that's for certain. Genuinely, this team, where do you guys think? I think if this team was at the Euros with this squad, I think this could get semis of the Euros, semi-finals of the Euros, maybe a final. Honestly, I think this team would cook. I think this team beats most teams at the Euros, beats Spain, beats Italy, Netherlands, Portugal. I think it would give a good run for the money. England, maybe. Yeah, I think this team cooks. But there we go. Those are the players not at Euro 2024. Let me know in the comments if I missed out anybody. If you have enjoyed this video,